in fourth grade, I started playing drums, mainly because my mom wanted her pots and pans back. So I needed something else to beat on. And I met Mr. Sam Reynolds when I was in fourth grade. So let's say I was 10, so that was 40 years ago. And he was a mentor the entire time through Princeton. And I consider him a friend today. And I learned a lot from the guy. I mean, a whole lot. But I think more than music, you know, from him specifically, he always talked about presenting yourself with class, right? And how you carried yourself. And there are many times in any given year where I think about that. And so I think it's one of the most important things that I learned from him specifically. But when you think about the foundation of Princeton, a lot of it isn't even just the 4 years, but it's the entire time from fourth grade meeting Mr. Reynolds to seventh grade meeting Mr. Williams and Mr. Dave Maroon, who's also a friend to this day, and then Mr. Christ, and then having them through not only your high school years or your elementary or your junior high years, but also through your life, right? Like your teachers and your friends become lifelong friends. Jason and I met when we were in seventh grade. I'm really great friends with a guy, Mark Sanders, who I've known since fourth grade. Like we carry these people with us a long time, and we're also carrying Princeton with us along with it. Again, it's the people. I mean, it's simply the people, right? Like the institution provides an environment for that connection beyond just teacher-student. It provides an environment where you can create bonds that last a long time. And, you know, this weekend, met with Jason and Kyle Thomas, both part of the Princeton Percussion Corps, and put a photo up of the three of us because we're reunited. And yeah, all of our friends liked it, but more important, you see Mr. Maroon going, wow, you guys are great, right? You see Mr. Reynolds comment, like you see our teachers, Becky Brown, she was part of the marching band. You see her comment. So like, these are now friendships, right? And I think that's the institution provides the environment for relationships that can last a lifetime. Yeah, well, you know, through Princeton, it was all music for me, right? Like everything was like first thing in the morning, went and had a music class, and then a couple academics, and then more music in the afternoon, and then some academics and more music at night going into the night. I think, you know, there were a lot of nights, you know, even playing with the theater, we'd be there till 9 or 10 at night and then get back up and be there at 7 in the morning. And then that extended through college, when I went to the College Conservatory of Music there in Cincinnati, had a 4-year period where I was studying to be a drummer, but also just really learning about myself, what my strengths and weaknesses were as a young adult. And at the same time, you know, while I talk about the relationships that the institution of Princeton put together or created an environment to blossom, I met my now wife when I was 15, right? And so we went to college together. She went to DAP to study fashion design, and I was there to study music. And then right after college, she moved to New York City, and I soon followed. And at that point, made the decision not to be a musician, but to be an executive. And so we followed each other kind of in New York. I really followed her, to be honest. And then we made our way in the city. And, you know, I think I talk a lot about, when talking to kids, I talk about no plan Bs. Now, if you're not sure what you want to do, if you're not sure where you want to go, then you should have all plan Bs, right? But for people who have a dream, a real dream, you can't have a plan B, because your dream is supposed to be so lofty and so unobtainable that if you have a plan B, you will quit, right? That's how hard your dreams have to be. That's how high you have to aspire, that if you have a plan B, you will go to it, right? And the competition, they want you to go to your plan B, because that's going to make it easier for them. I was talking to a kid who wanted to be a broadcaster, but really didn't, was kind of like, nah, I don't think I can make it. And the question is, why not? So that's a key thing that I learned in Princeton for me, was that because I had no plan B, I'd had no choice but to become successful with my plan A. And there were plenty of times curled up on the ground in a 400 square foot apartment in New York City, literally crying, saying, New York beat me. but I didn't have a choice but to get up the next day and go keep moving forward because I didn't have a plan B. I didn't listen to my parents and also get a minor in accounting because then I would be an accountant right now, right? And I would have given up on those dreams. So that foundation of Princeton that I then continued to learn about myself through college and then being in New York City, I try to pass on to young kids who do have a dream because they are going to be told, what's your plan B? And if they have a real dream, their answer has to be, I don't need one. I'm going to figure this out, right? And I think that's a big part of what I got from Princeton, without question. I think, and part of it though, you have to really clarify is how your dream can be altered, right? So when I was in high school, my dream was probably to be a musician, right? But it wasn't because I was absolutely passionate about being a musician. It's because I didn't know about the other world that surrounded music, right? And that's another piece of the puzzle where I think, it's really important that student advisors kind of have to do a little extra research when they're dealing with someone with a dream, because they can't just say, well, what happens if you're not going to be a musician? You got to have an accountant as a backup. I found out through college, I didn't have the chops to be a musician. I was practicing 8 hours or 18 hours a day sometimes, and I wasn't as good as the naturals, the guys who just grew up with it, the guys who just, were prodigies. But what I did find is I had a really great perspective on the business classes that I took, right? So the dream was altered, but the dream was still music, right? And the dream was still to be successful in the music business. And now looking back, I can go, wow, I made my bones in the music business. That's pretty cool, right? But the dreams can be altered. That's not a plan B, I don't think. I think there's a subtle difference there that kids have to adjust for themselves. When you talk to a kid who's a skateboarder, he's like, oh, I didn't want to do skateboard. Great. There's a giant business around skateboarding. You could manufacture skateboards. You could sell skateboards. You can work for Red Bull and do marketing around skateboard events. Like there's a massive, massive business around almost everything. So if there is a plan B, it's study business, because everything you do in your life is going to be a business. But that ain't a plan B. That's a plan A too, because everything's going to be a business and you're not going to have to know how to run your own business. There's an important piece of it to say, as you grow and learn more about the business of your dream, that's okay to alter that. Honest day to day, Mondays are bananas, right? Mondays, my alarm goes off at 5:30. I get up. This is when the charts come out. Everything that I do is about the top 40 chart. You've heard about #1 records. My job is to get #1 records, right? My job is to get it on the top 40 chart and then make it a #1. So the first thing I do when I wake up is I analyze the charts, and then I create a game plan or an attack plan for the staff. So everybody around the country knows exactly what the priorities are, what's most important, what's expected, et cetera. That's the first thing that comes out. And as I just left the trainer, I get an hour with the guy making me do a bunch of pull-ups and push-ups, like you say, healthy. And then the next hour or two is putting together kind of roadmaps for my clients so they can see where we are, what kind of success we're having with the records. And I can help them. It's almost like a pharmaceutical rep. People seem to understand that job better than mine. Pharmaceutical reps goes to doctors and says, hey, you should prescribe this because all these doctors did, and look how successful it is. My job's the same thing. I go, you should play this on your radio station because these guys did, and look how successful it is, right? So it's very parallel to a pharmaceutical rep. So I'll spend the day doing that, working with staff on how to talk to radio, and then just talking to radio directly about playing the songs. The way the week goes, the long and short of it is my week goes until Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, when what they call the panel changes, which is every radio station basically adds the songs to their radio station, which contribute to the chart. It's over at 6 o'clock. And then Wednesdays, we start over. So Wednesdays, we start building all the way till Tuesday night. So our week's kind of cut in half. And then it's executive work stuff. It's sitting in meetings, having conversations, strategizing for the future, looking at quarter to quarter and what our release schedule is and how we're going to maintain a certain amount of records on the chart at every time, because we're judged by chart share. What kind of what percentage of the chart we own, right? So we got to always project out what's coming next. And then the last piece of the puzzle is really, and this is something we've always got to keep in mind, this is more aspirational, but it's really something that's an important piece of the puzzle, is how do we protect our artist? How do we advocate for our artist? How do we push them in the right direction for them to be successful while protecting their vision and their dream, right? Because those two things, when they come together, it's incredible, but very often the dream and the aspiration of an artistic mind doesn't always fit in the square peg of business and what we do. So we have to try to come together while always keeping in mind that we're advocating for an artist, someone who has a dream and a vision, and we have to help them get there. So that's the day-to-day, and also the aspirational part of the job that I think is the most fun and the most easy to lose sight of. But when you remind yourself of it, it constantly inspires you to keep moving. Is current base top 40. So in Cincinnati, it's Q102 and the KISS station, right? Those are the top 40 stations. There's 188 of them across the country. So the way we balance it is, a lot of the artists that you mentioned are going to be catalog artists, right? Or they're going to be on WEBN, which is not my responsibility. Our artists are more current based. So Dua Lipa, BB Rexa, Jason Derulo. Right now, we've got an artist coming from Brazil. Her name's Anita. She's a massive worldwide star. She just hasn't broken the United States yet. We've got this girl, Sweetie, who's a rapper who is about to drop one of the biggest pop records of the year in the next 2 weeks. So part of the balance is simply we're kind of on their time schedule, right? They're in, and we work with them to make the record. I don't, but our company does, to help them make a record and make a single, right? One that can go on the radio. And then once they got it done, and we know that we can add the artwork and we can add the video and all the things that we need for the marketing tools to get in place, then we look at the schedule and go, when's the safest time to go to lead us to a path to success, right? So right now, I've got these 2 records that are amazing. I have to go in October. I cannot go in November because all the charts shut down in December, right? For 6 weeks, from the middle of December to about the middle of January. So if I want to put them on a path to success, I have to go now to get them on the most pop stations I can. So it's solidified through that 6 weeks break. So we come back and maybe we have research and we can tell if it's a hit record or not, right? So a lot of it is scheduling for success for the record, but also scheduling for success for chart share to make sure that we can maintain, because that's kind of our report card, if you will. Dua Lipa is our biggest success story to date. The last 5 years, she's a worldwide superstar. Been working with her for 5 years. Took 2.5 really to break her through. Three singles that were C pluses or Bs before she had New Rules, which became a #1 record, and now Levitating, which is easily the biggest song of the year. So New Rules was the biggest song on all of radio in 2018. And now Levitating will be the biggest song on all of radio for 2021, which is incredible. When you think about every song that's been played on radio, that one got the most airplay. Yeah, that's our team. Our team's responsible for making sure, when people talk about the radio and they say, oh man, they just play the same song over and over again.
Of course, as always, go Vikes.